How's it going, everybody? I know we don't normally stream on a Sunday, but today is a bit of a special day because I am joined by Portable Orange.
Hey, what's up, guys? Nice to see you all again. Run a little history channel. Been on with Suris before.
Okay. And we also have Christ Volpe, who is running for Ohio Senate right now in here at the same time, which is, this is not technically our first time being on stream together because of the election night when Mamdani won, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff there, including video games, a decent bit of the time when we could let certain interests take over the conversation, as we try to do in spaces like this. That said, though, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're doing over in Ohio?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. My name is Christ Volpe. I'm running for J.D. Vance's Senate seat in beautiful Ohio. Streaming to you from Columbus, just as a heads up, we are having quite the storm. So if I get disconnected, I apologize. But really excited to be here, talk about whatever is of interest to you and your audience. I am not a politician. This is the first thing I've ever run for. I'm sort of a small business guy. I own a video game and software company. I teach, taught a lot at different universities. I'm an artist. So I have a background in healthcare, public safety. So I'm kind of all over the place. Plus just a video game nerd in general. So I'm sure we'll divert into that territory at some point. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I mean, well, if we're talking about video games, then I kind of want to go ahead and throw the first question at you. What are your favorite games? Because everybody gets what's your favorite game, and I find that people who play a lot of games do not have a singular one.
Yeah, totally. So I always say, gun to my head, I always say Chrono Trigger. I love that game.
Okay.
I've loved that game since I played it when I was a kid. I was born in 81, so I'm a first-year millennial, and I grew up with the NES and the SNES. And
I get it. That's my second favorite RPG.
Chrono Trigger. What's your first?
Paper Mario.
Oh,
classic.
Intriguing. Okay. Super Mario RPG is also one of my favorite games.
Okay.
But I like a lot of stuff. I predominantly spend time in single-player experiences. I'm playing Outer Worlds 2 right now. I'm really enjoying that. Cyberpunk. I loved Cyberpunk. The Last of Us series. I mean, we chatted on election night about Metal Gear.
Very story-driven, very cinematic type of games. I mean, if gun to your head, Chrono Trigger is up there, and I'm hearing Cyberpunk, Last of Us, Outer Worlds, I'm hearing this thing has a deep story, this thing has a deep story, this thing has a deep story, or at least a very, very lore-heavy, very story-driven experiences. That's the kind of stuff that seems to speak to you.
Yeah, if I'm going to sit down and play a game, I just don't have the time to get good at some of these competitive multiplayer games, so I just kind of don't do them. And I'm very gameplay centered as well, but I kind of want a story and the aesthetics of the world to grab me, and if they can do that, if they're telling me something interesting, generally I'm in.
All right, I can definitely get behind that. I'm kind of in the middle there myself. What I do not know where Andrew is, but this is also not an interview for him. But since we're on the conversation though, for just a brief bit, I want to throw that one to Andrew as well. What are your favorite games here, so we know what the temperature of the room is?
I mean, I have over 1,000 hours in Crusader Kings 2. I don't know if I'd call it favorite so much as addicted, but one and the same at a certain point. And then, probably. I mean, I've been loving the hell out of Silksong. I loved Hollow Knight. Dark Souls probably is huge for me.
I'm feeling very, very twitchy, mechanics oriented styles of games for you then.
But that's more recent, because what I was going to say is my older favorites, if you'd asked, it would have been Radiata Stories, this very small JRPG, and then Kingdom Hearts, which a lot more people know. I was a bigger fan of them in maxing RPGs back in the day. Whereas nowadays, much like Chris is saying, it's look, I can just sit down and Twitch. I don't have time to read 10 million wikis and just be what's the most optimal way to build out my party? So,
yeah. One of my absolute favorite games is Path of Exile, and I've been enjoying Path of Exile too. But it's you kind of have to have a PhD to fully understand what is going on in that game.
My girlfriend is a huge Path of Exile nerd, and I'll be laying down with her playing WoW with my 3 very, very small talent trees, and I'll look over at the gargantuan talent system that game uses, and just man, I think I'm good over here. My backstab got 2% more damage, and I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm feeling real good. Yeah, it is a beautifully constructed game. And it does come across as overwhelming because you got your skill talents and then there's like end game skill placement. It's a whole thing. You have your ascendancies, which is another level you're dealing with. But all in all, it's a very great game. And Andrew, to your point, I also do like playing very gameplay focused games. You made me like Rogue Legacy,
Sure. Love that one. Yep.
Hotline Miami. I'm trying to think of like I went through. I got to add a Vita, PlayStation Vita, and I was going through a lot of those like kind of arcadey games that I had missed and kind of platinuming those. And I went through quite a few of those games, got the platinum for it, and kind of moved on to the next. I stopped somewhere at Super Meat Boy where I just didn't have time to finish that one, but
that's any gamer. I think it's tough to find a gamer who's like, I've never touched an RPG. I only do like, kind of Twitch mechanics, Souls likes, or the opposite of that. I think for the most part, one of the cool things about gaming is you dip your toes into a lot of different genres. And even if there's one you like more than others, if Expedition 33 comes out, if some, big story driven, you
get a Baldur's Gate 3 coming out at some point and suddenly everybody is everybody's on that for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Both those are on my list. I tend to do like one longer game during winter when you're not going out as much and stuff. And I think it's going to be Expedition 33 for me this year. Just because everyone's talking about it as like the hands down game of the year. I was like, all right, I should probably play this.
Well,
and also as a side note, I'm just going to post a little link in here. This has nothing to do with anything, but this is Mole Maiden, which is a game that was created within our ecosystem. It's a really cool game. It was just released, and this company was a part of our accelerator. Great game, and I'm just trying to give them a little love. One, because it's a good game, but two, they had their release date, they had all their marketing plans and everything, and then Silksong announced that they were dropping the same weekend, and that ate up the entire, the entire sort of marketing place. So I'll just throw a little Steam link in there for folks if they're interested in checking that game out.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of, I remember you sharing that too the night of the election when we were all talking, and I remember just feeling horrendous because I knew so many other like AAA studios were moving their release date. And of course, you can't always do that when you're smaller, and it was just like, imagine making a game like that's that disruptive to the industry. But it's
really challenging.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say it's really challenging. Another of my friends, Renee Gittins, she did Potions: A Curious Tale, which is also on stream, and very similar. She'd been working on it for quite a few years. I want to say 5 or 6 years, maybe. Ready to have it out, had the marketing, was doing all the community engagement, and then I think it was EA just did like a dump of their games, just like it wasn't even planned, right? They're just like, we're just gonna dump like 10 of our games on to Steam, and then all of a sudden the Steam front page was just like.
It was just everything that EA had, right before they get bought out by another country.
And as an indie studio, indie studio, you can't do anything about it, right? Like you don't have any control over what EA does, and and right now we're in this very, very interesting that started last October. We're in this kind of waiting period to see what GTA is going to do because nobody wants to compete against GTA. So, like at the beginning of this year. January, February, when GTA 6 was supposed to come out in October, you could tell there was a whole bunch of releases, February, March, April, May, June started to fall down, and then like July started to fall, and then August, September, October, November, there was like nothing because nobody wanted to be anywhere near.
Yeah, nobody wants to be in that time
6.
slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want that to be something that they're having to fight against, basically.
Well, I think what's interesting about this sort of conversation too is you actually have experience in making something in the indie gaming space, taking something small and kind of turning it up into something big. Of course, there's your company, Multivariate, which has an interesting history, but I more want to talk about GDEX, the conference that you kind of helped form, where I think when most people think of gaming, it's Seattle, of course, for Steam and Microsoft and whatnot, and then maybe a little bit of Maryland because of Bethesda or something like that. The Midwest, though, I don't think comes to people's minds as much as this like sort of space for gaming. And I'm interested as to first what made you want to start kind of a gaming expose like that, but also kind of what were the struggles you faced trying to introduce this in a market where all the signs said this will never work.
Yeah. So just real quick, I was in healthcare at the time that I was doing my company on the side, and I was in the medical center. and this innovation studio is what it's called. And my job was to look at technologies, any kind of technology, and see if there's like a healthcare application for it. So it was a pretty cool job. So I was there for a little bit as I was also kind of working my way into med school. And the department ended up getting downsized. And so I was like the first half to go, and then the center doesn't exist anymore. And at the time I was like, well, should I get another job in healthcare? But I was also like, I've been running this video game company kind of on the side as a side project. And long story short, I just kind of said, screw it. I don't know if this is a swearing podcast or not, but
you can definitely say any word, so long as it's not a slur.
Okay, good to know.
So yeah, you can't say the Z word, you can't say the Y word, but you can say the fuck word.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to. What are the Z word and the Y word?
I think those are variables, not
Okay. You caught me off guard. I'm like, is it like zebra? I don't know. Is this an Australian thing?
No, I actually throw that one at people every single time so they can try to guess what the slur is, and there never actually is one. There's never actually anything in that placeholder.
Good to know. But anyway, so started doing this thing, this video game company. But actually, before I started doing multivarious full time, we have this community group called COG, Central Ohio Game Dev Group, thecog.com if you want to check it out. And I just kept hearing people talking in the background about like, oh, we should have some kind of event or some kind of showcase or some kind of something for people, right? And I kept hearing it. I was like, you know what, guys, like, fuck it. Like, why don't we just do something? Like, I'm not an event planner. Don't know what I'm doing here, but let's just do something. We had the first one, 2013, was going to be in September of 2013 at OSU. And I think we had like 13 exhibitors. And I was like, if we could get 50 or 100 people besides us to come to this thing, I'll consider that a win.
That'd be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And about 2 weeks before the event, we just got blown up. People wanting to speak and sponsor and exhibit. And we're like, well, what do we do? Like, I don't know if we got on like a blog post or something.
Suddenly you've just become a dream hack.
Yeah. Like we hit some kind of something, right? And I was like, well, what do we do? And I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to capture this excitement again. So let's push it back. We ended up pushing it back because we had sold, I think, 65 tickets at that point. So we kind of hit the bottom end of what we were trying to do. And we told folks, we could do any kind of like refunds or exchanges or whatever. But we pushed it back to the first weekend of December, biggest blizzard of the year. We were carting all our crap in at 6 a.m. in the sleet and the snow. But we ended up going from 13 exhibitors to 33. We added all-day speaking sessions. We added more sponsors. And we ended up with over 750 guests from 8 states and Canada come to it in our first year.
So suddenly you had wall-to-wall content for the entire thing and people to attend all of it.
Yep. And sort of interestingly, we talked about this kind of in the green room beforehand about just showing up is kind of half the battle, right? Mm-hmm. Just by happenstance, that weekend was Extra Life's charity event weekend. So at the OSU Union, there was a charity event going on for Extra Life. So that ended up, we didn't know that at the time, right? We were setting up and we're like, what's going on across the hall? We saw all this like video game nerdery going on. So we went over there and I started talking to the guy who was running that. He's now one of my good friends. And now Extra Life has been a charity partner with us for all of GDEX going forward. So that's been really exciting. But ultimately, I wanted to just create a way to showcase what initially was Columbus developers were going and then kind of became Ohio and then expanded to the Midwest because there's a lot of talent and passion here. And there's a really big brain drain, too, just because if you want to go work in AAA somewhere, you do have to go to Seattle or LA or San Francisco or New York. You have to go
where the industry's going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like if you're working in film, you're going to find yourself in areas that are hubs for that. Like that's one of the reasons that some of my friends here in Atlanta just happen to be people in the film industry because this is a place where the film industry, thrives. So to an extent, there's issues they're dealing with right
recent.
now. Yeah,
that's recent too, because that was Tyler Perry. Really, is the one who put Atlanta on the map. Not that Atlanta didn't have work before that, but it was his investment in the infrastructure that really brought a lot of people.
And they also, he was involved with this, but they also, the Atlanta film subsidies and tax subsidies really helped.
Yep.
Like they invested into, which is something I'm happy to talk about sort of from a political angle, but it's just like people kind of ask me all the time about how do you do this or how do you build a games industry or how do you fix whatever. And you hate being like, well, money is the answer, right? But it turns out in a lot of situations, money is in fact the answer. If you invest in things with infrastructure and funding, then those things will grow. Like people that are interested in those will find a purchase. They'll find something they can build off of. But if it's just like, oh, everybody's, best of luck, go build an industry. And you're like, well, okay, we're going to try.
So out of curiosity, do you think that there's any kinds of like third places, like a gaming cafe type of thing where people could maybe have more of those conversations, not just with people who are in the industry, but for people who want to break in the industry to start themselves in that, where they can get some of that, maybe not even experience, just like exposure, and have it be a thing where they're not having to specifically pay to go to a convention, because that's a huge barrier for some people. Is they'll go, well, I'd love to go, like for instance here, you'd love to go to DreamHack, but you don't have $130 for the weekend, but that there's maybe an opportunity there. Is there any like lower level, third place-ish type of thing that somebody could go to in your area where people can have those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on it, and you mentioned whatever, $130. I mean, that's cheap to like. I think PAX is like $250 or $300 now for the weekend. I was at DICE this year in Vegas. That is $3,400 for the base ticket.
Yep.
GDC is expensive. Yeah, a lot of these things are expensive. So like at GDEX, the gdex.com, GDEX, if you want to check that out as well. But we try to be as affordable as we can. So like our highest level ticket is $200, and that gets you into everything. And then we also have student rates, veteran rates and stuff. So we try to do that. But to answer your question, I always suggest looking at, are there any IGDA chapters, the International Game Developer Association?
Okay.
You can attend a lot of those meetings, whether they're remote or in person, and you don't have to be an IGDA member to go. Also, places like gaming cafes, tabletop cafes, those are good community spots. It's kind of funny you asked me that question. I was just at the Shawnee State Games Conference Friday and Saturday, and we had a conversation about third places and how after COVID, a lot of them just sort of disappeared. Yeah. And that's because, a lot of these sort of like little community areas were, they were in survival mode, sort of. They were able to sustain themselves.
Yeah, they work on thin margins usually.
Yeah, and then when COVID hit, it just also a lot of businesses stopped offering like community space for free to folks.
Any place that could not hold product suddenly became a liability when your margins are as thin as paper.
Yeah, so I think finding something that makes sense for you, that just find these groups in which you can share the passion. That's another thing we talked about over the weekend, is that everything right now, understandably so, because times are real tight. Everything now is like, how can you monetize this? Right? Yeah. Like everything's about how can you monetize? Oh, you like cooking? Why don't you do a cooking YouTube stream and start like. Or you could just enjoy cooking. Yeah, that's something you could do too.
That's one of the things that hit me, because I during COVID, and we'll move on from this here in just a minute, but during COVID, I got like really into Nerf guns. It's what got me into 3D printing as a hobby. Because it gave me something to do with my hands. Because during COVID, when you just needed something to do that you could sit there and do on your own, getting a couple like $10 Nerf guns from the store, getting a bunch of springs from Home Depot, and then just like sitting there and ripping everything apart and seeing how far you can get the thing to shoot on a chronograph, that's just a little engineering project you can do. And people would just be like, well, why not make a YouTube video about this? Like, because I don't want to. Like, I'm just enjoying tinkering with my hands. Let me do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had the same conversation on my team with the campaign, where it's like, well, I'm gonna play a game. Why don't you stream it, right? I was like, well, I just want to be in it. I just want to play. So I did some Fallout 4 streams for a while when I first started, and that was fun. And then I got busy and wasn't able to finish the game, but maybe I'll revisit it, because I think isn't the anniversary edition coming out here soon?
Something like that.
Like tomorrow, maybe. Yeah. But so anyway, I think it really is important, and I had a lot of conversations around AI and social media and stuff this weekend, and I kind of, in the back of my mind, I have this feeling based on the conversations I'm having, that people are just really looking for like authentic connection right now.
Yeah.
And people are looking for those third spaces. People are looking for ways they can go out and do something that they like and just spend time
Do what you love around
others
people.
that like the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in the dating scene right now too. Like these dating apps are atrocious. And I think people are just trying to find ways to make real meaningful connection.
It's gamified isolation.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's all about engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about
like all these apps.
No, you're the interview. Sorry, no, you're the interview.
No. You're the boss. It's all you.
Well, I was just saying, I do think it's part of this culture. I think it's the fact that, like, nowadays there's this idea that, like, all of these systems are failing us. So the only way to true happiness is escaping the system. But the path to escaping the system is always this idea of like, oh, do what you love and monetize it. Not because it's fun, turn it into a full-time job.
Which is just participating in the system even harder.
Exactly. Yeah,
That does beg a question though. So you mentioned that your campaign was asking you to kind of do some of the live streams of your gaming, and you effectively said, I kind of want to have a work-life balance. But that does kind of
sort of. I mean, we had a conversation about it. They didn't really push me in any way, so I don't want to give that impression. But
that's fair.
We definitely had a conversation about it.
But that does actually lead into the next question, which is you are running a campaign for Ohio Senate for JD Vance's seat. So my question would be, with everything else that you've been working on with GDEX and with trying to, do what you're doing in the industry, why start running now? What's the impetus to take the seat? Yep.
It's actually really simple. I was looking around at what was going on in the world, and I didn't like the direction that the administration was going. I didn't like what I was seeing kind of happening in the country to my neighbors. And I didn't see anybody standing up to do anything about it. And I kind of had a little bit of a moment where I was like, I don't want to look back in 10 or 20 years and ask myself, like, what did you do? And I didn't do anything. And so I decided that I was going to do something. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. Like, I was moderately active in politics in the sense that I was, relatively well educated and listened to a lot of news and podcasts and stuff. But I'm not involved in the actual machinations of politics in any way. And so I started thinking about it. Well, what could I do? There's a off year election happening in 2025. We have 2026 election happening. Mm-hmm. And then kind of hit me, and I was like, oh, we have a special election for the Senate because of JD Vance's vacancy. Because when he was elected to vice president, that space opened up. And the way it worked.
Vacancy.
Yeah. So the way it works is that there is a 6-year term for Senate. The first 2 years JD Vance was in, then he won to become vice president. Then that position is filled by our governor, Governor DeWine, who's a Republican. So he put in John Husted. And I was kind of thinking well, John Husted's kind of a bump on a log. He's not a particularly interesting guy, and I don't think he's really helping Ohio that much. I have a lot of experience in business building, community building, art, technology. This seems like something, and just strangely enough, I was on OSU's, Ohio State University's Senate for a few years as well. So I actually have been a senator at one point in my past. Mm-hmm. But I just kind of hit me. I was like, you know what? I am not seeing anybody stand up to do anything about this. So I'm going to do something. And I started educating myself, got myself filed, started building my team. I've kind of looked at this like starting a small business, and I'm trying to, I guess if the product is me and my ideas, then I'm trying to build a small business around that and build a little coalition. And that's something first of all, I'm grateful for you having me here, because one of the things I noticed right away is that the sort of establishment, so I'm running as a Democrat, mm-hmm. The establishment politicians, it's just hard to break into that sphere, right? It is kind of like who you know. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of resource sharing. There's no real networking connectivity that happens. And so I started building a little coalition of people just around me. And some of them you saw when you guys were on the stream for the election. But I've also been reaching out to other Senate and congressional representatives that are running, and just being like, okay, well, let's start building a team and let's start getting to know people, start building our own network. If we're not going to get invited into this network, then let's making our own network.
Start building one. That's kind of what the DSA ended up doing as well with their own thing is just saying like, okay, if politics is supposed to be for everybody, and if we're all locked out of politics, let's make something that gets more people into politics from our side. But that does kind of bring up the next question. Is it so you've voiced a couple of frustrations. One of them, Republican bump on the log, not really helping everybody in Ohio. The guy who's kind of just warm bodying JD Vance's seat. And then obviously we're in the middle of the Trump presidency as well. There's certainly a cluster of frustrations there. And if the Democratic Party is not sharing power and openness with people who are trying to get in and try to do the right thing, which one of those do you think is your biggest motivating factor? Which one of those frustrations would you say?
Ooh, man. I mean, I think ultimately they're all tied up together. So I think someone made a comment, sort of a joke about like abuse for a second, and we are kind of in an abusive relationship here, right? Like we're being gaslit. The administration is straight up lying to us. They're straight up just trying to wear us down. And it's a very common thing, right? Like an abuser creates chaos, or they create a situation that puts you in a bad space, gets you, off kilter, or maybe financially unstable or emotionally unstable. Then they come in and try to pretend like they're fixing it to like make them look good. And then once you start to feel regulated again, then they'll throw you into chaos again. And that's exactly what's coming. I mean, just look at the tariffs, right? The way the tariffs are being implemented is just completely ridiculous. There's no strategy or plan behind
Absolutely. The what was I was watching a few things on the tariff situation, and the going theory effectively is the way that tariffs help a nation is when they're established to be a 10 to 20 year thing, so that people can go, okay, this is what our normal is, this is what we are using, this is how we adjust to this. Like, people have time to function within them. They are not by themselves this net evil. They're a thing we've been using for years. Whereas what the administration is doing right now under the Republican Party, and especially under Trump, is going, hey, if this nation does something that I want, I'll lift the tariffs on them, or I'll lower the tariffs on them, and I'll operate these not as laws, but more as levers that I can just kind of move around constantly and quickly.
Yeah, it's just a bullying tactic, right? Yeah. That's all it is. He's a bully. He uses force. He's used to using power and privilege and prestige as a bludgeoning tool, and so that's what he's doing. So that's definitely a part of it. Seeing the harm that's coming to my friends, family, and neighbors, seeing the relationships that are being broken because of this guy, like this jackass, like it's really just sad. And we're probably. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but you also have to look at things realistically. And I think we're probably at least 10, if not 20 years away from any sort of restructuring of America to get it kind of, I hesitate to say back to where it was, because I think the only direction now is forward. But like a lot of our global trading partners, like they're not going to trust us for, they're not going to trust us for as long as Trump is in the office. And they're probably not going to trust us much longer. You can already see Canada, China, a lot of our trading partners like India, Pakistan, the EU, they're already starting to make adjustments in essence to cut us out so that they don't have to rely on us anymore. And you're not going to get that rebuilt in a year. And to your point, think about it as a business owner, right? Okay, there's a tariff on my product, so that should behoove me to manufacture in the United States. So in order to do that, I need to redo my supply lines. I need a workforce, possibly a retrained workforce, to be able to do whatever it needs to be done. I probably need to license, build a manufacturing plant, something, right? So I need to get all that going. So you're talking about investments of millions, if not billions of dollars, depending on what you're doing. Nobody is going to do that if they are not confident that these tariffs are going to hold for at least 5 years. If you're investing,
they're just going to wait. They're going to wait and see if they die down in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months.
Because you're not going to invest in something that is going to require a multi-year or potentially decade-long payback before you hit a break even. Because if you do that, and then Trump on a whim is like, well, instead of 130% tariffs, it's now 10%. All that money you just invested in the United States is going to blow up in your face. So why would you do that? And as a business person, you need to be thinking about, like, my brain is always at least, you know, you mentioned GDEX. I'm already thinking about next year's GDEX. And we just had GDEX a little bit ago, and I'm already planning for next year. And so you're always thinking multiple years ahead. And right now, it just doesn't make any sense. There's too much uncertainty, too much instability on the business front to do that. So, I mean, for me, it all kind of wraps around in this very simple message, which is I don't see anybody stepping up here in Ohio and nationally that is fighting and advocating for a future that I want to live in right now. And so I stepped up, and I'm going to do my best to make policies and make decisions and advocate for things that are making people's lives better. Like, it's very simple.
I think too, like, the interesting thing about how Trump is able to reform so much of our stuff is that he poses as an outsider. So when he poses something a bit more radical, people are more accepting of it, of this idea that he's not a politician. And I think to your point about it's going to take us 10 to 20 years to rebuild, I think there's also an opportunity in there where we don't have to rebuild the same systems. We can sort of rebuild different systems. And so I was wondering, I guess, to your sort of outsider mentality, to the perspective you have that I think a lot of politicians don't have necessarily, what would you want to see rebuilt? Not even in terms of international trade. I'm saying even like closer to home in terms of how we can kind of provide for people better.
Yeah, another great question. So real fast, a lot of this I think has to do with the failures of the past. So to your point that Trump seems like an outsider, it's because he is just saying and doing and, you know, advocating for things that traditional establishment Democrats and Republicans have just kind of like been doing. And so one of the things that I say to people is the situation we're in now didn't just fall out of the sky, right? Like, this is a result of decades,
over years.
Yes,
yeah, this is generations of policy decisions that have been made by our leaders that have gotten us into this situation. And so when I talk about, I'm a very like goals oriented person. And like when I talk about sort of the failures of the past, or when I criticize like the Democratic Party, for example, it's because I want us to be able to, oh, sorry, babe. Here's baby girl.
Aww.
Put you down there for a second. I want to be able to have a clear-eyed conversation about what got us here and how we can be better. And in order to do that, we have to have some self-reflection, right? All of us. And it's actually one of the reasons that I reached out to you, is because I saw some of your videos, and you have a lot of videos about sort of looking at yourself and your past and thinking of like, how can I be better, right? And I have told folks that part of what I'm running on is sort of this trust and accountability aspect, which is if we're going to move forward and start building a better future, we're going to have to be honest about what our role has been in what got us here and how we can get out of it, right? We can't just pretend that like Trump is the end all be all of everything. And once Trump is gone, everything will be sunshine and rainbows, because that's not the reality. Like, so you mentioned, you know, some of the things that I would like to move forward is like, ultimately, I think we need to be as a society investing in people, which sounds like such a silly concept. But for me, I'm a real big fan of aligned incentives. And so if we're all moving in the same direction, society, the people, corporations, all of that, like have a clear direction, and each of those things is reinforcing the other, then we have an opportunity to be the economic and cultural powerhouse for the next 50 years.
The one that we pretend that we are.
Yeah. And I mean, we have been in the past, but I would, you know, just pulling a number out of my butt here, I would say at least the past 20 years, we've been more riding on momentum than anything else. You know, like when, for example, I think a lot of people you talk about privilege a lot, right? That kind of gets thrown around a lot. But when you think about privilege at a societal level, you have to think about things like what is the language of business? It's English, right? Yeah. So we inherently have an advantage there. Other countries that don't speak English are having to spend time and effort teaching English to their students so that they can be competitive in the global marketplace. What's the reserve currency of the world? It's the dollar, the American dollar. Yep. So, you know, that's another advantage. Who has, I mean, we have this extremely strong educational framework here in at least, you know, higher ed, right? And again, those things didn't just fall out of the sky, right? Like our educational system has been so good because in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we invested a lot of money post World War II. We invested a lot of time, money, and effort.
We did everything we could to try to get a leg up. We got to stand on the world stage, and we realized we were, I mean, this is a bit apocryphal, but stood on the world stage and realized we were lacking, which is, again, not entirely how things end up going when you're actually talking about the business deals, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. This is very complex, right? I'm trying to kind of boil it down into some simple things. But ultimately, if you want to get ahead, you need to invest in the things that are going to allow you to get ahead. And part of that is money, part of that is effort, part of that's just support. Some of it's expectations. So, setting the expectation that we want our people to be successful and able to move up the economic ladder, right? Like, I don't even feel like that expectation is there anymore from like leadership. No. There's no support. There's no expectations. It's just kind of like, well, you're on your own, right? So you have 350 million people that are just going to be thrown to the wolves.
They're surviving until they die. Like the language, when I was growing up, the language was very much here's how you find a career. Here's how you do something that you're going to love with your life. Now, obviously, the career path that was given to us was not wholly accurate, because as the world changes and things, it just isn't. It's also not really affordable for a lot of people. But I feel like the language now is how do you survive? Like, most of the language we hear now is like, how do you get the things you need for survival? We hear about hustle culture. We hear about which, again, hustle culture does not exist to pull you out of a hole. Hustle culture exists to fill up whatever gaps your time has and turn them into money. We had the conversation a little bit earlier about, oh, you like this thing, why don't you monetize it? And it's like, because sometimes it's okay to just like things.
Well, it's a little bit more insidious than that too, because it's like all these gig things, right? Your Grubhubs and your Ubers and all that stuff.
Yeah, the things that don't pay benefits.
But that's an extension of side work. Or it's like, I got my full-time job, but I mow some lawns on the weekend or whatever for some extra money, right? It was like, hey, I can get some extra money. Over time, those have defaulted into becoming necessary. So a lot of people aren't working Uber to make extra money. They're making Uber to make their ends meet.
Yep.
And that cycle is continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And now we're noticing that there's some areas where you can't even do Uber Eats or whatever. Like they're not taking more drivers, right?
Yeah, it's completely filled up.
Yeah. So back to my thing about aligned incentives, I've been kind of giving like a little bit of an example, right? But like, I don't know if either of you have children or not, but if you're a parent, anybody in chat that's a parent, think about this. Like, what if when you got pregnant with your first child, you got all the prenatal care you want? You got access to the doctor that was going to help you and provide you with guidance. And then when it was time for labor, you were able to go into the hospital and they took care of you. And when you left, they gave you a basket of diapers and instructions, and there was no bill. And then you could spend time, because you had maternal or parental leave in those early years of the child's life. And then eventually, if you wanted to go back to work, you could have childcare that would put your child in a position to not only learn things, but also engage with others and learn those social skills that they need. And then they have a nice K-5 experience where they're really learning all of the fundamentals, not just about sort of business, but, civics and home economics and health, things like that. Then when they graduate, they can go to a college or a vocational school based on what they want to do and how they can build their own career and walk away with no debt from that. And then they go out and they find a partner that is also receiving that level of support. And so that they feel that they are safe and secure to get married and maybe have a child of their own, which is something a lot of people are putting off because they don't feel financially secure. And then that cycle can repeat. Meanwhile, we're creating healthy, productive workers, which helps businesses be successful. We are competitive on the global stage. So we are not only creating products here, but we are selling them across the globe and building out supply pipelines and infrastructure across the globe. And then the government is benefiting from that because it is receiving tax revenue from successful individuals and successful corporations.
The more people you have in your country, the more people you have paying taxes. Like, that's one of the reasons that, because Saki and I have talked about adopting before, And the biggest problem we've run into is that we cannot guarantee in any way, shape, or form. We have no way of guaranteeing a good life for a kid right now. We have zero ability to do that, because even with me working, doing the 3 channels that I do, and even with her streaming and doing her stuff, we make enough to take care of the bills and have a couple hundred in savings. That is it. That is the extent of what we are able to accomplish with the tools we have. That's not raise a child money.
Yeah. And most folks today don't even really have like retirement savings or we used to get pensions, and now those are a joke. You don't even see those. 401ks in a lot of places are being phased out and exchanged for like retirement accounts. And those aren't, it's just more and more of the burden is being placed on us as individuals. And it's making it really hard to not only get ahead, but just to survive.
I think like the affordability thing is really something that has been at the forefront of a lot of like Democrats specifically. And like my wife and I are in a similar thing where we're thinking about having a child, and much less from caring for it. We're thinking about, because I'm a contractor, I don't have health insurance, I have to pay everything out of pocket. How do we pay to have a child out of pocket? That's like a crazy amount of money. And I think that's something that, for the most part, like the Democratic Party tends to focus on a lot. But I will say, as someone who, I think compared to Suris at the very least, I'm a bit more centrist than Suris on the left side of things. And what I find really interesting about you, Chris, is that a lot of what you say resonates with me, even though I think to some people it might sound a bit left of where the Democratic Party likes to spend a lot of its time these days. Because certainly I think, especially with the shutdown, we are trying to be a bit more centrist. So I'm curious as to like, when you chose to run, why specifically did you choose to run as a Democrat as opposed to an independent or anything else? And I guess the easiest way to open that would be to ask you, what do you think the Democratic Party is, and what do you think it could be?
You want the real answer?
No, I'd prefer you lie to me, but
I can give you like the politician-y answer.
I actually like the real answer. I want the real answer.
Okay. So I think that the Democratic Party doesn't know what the hell it is. And the reason I'm running as a Democrat, and I use that phrasing as a Democrat, not that I am a Democrat, because I don't attach a political party to my sense of identity. I'm running for a job here. And within that job is political parties. And if I could get rid of political parties, I would, but I can't. This is the game we're playing, right? So the simple sort of cynical answer is I'm running as a Democrat because, one, I think I can make the Democratic Party better. I've been voting Democrat more or less all of my life, and I'm just consistently disappointed by the results that I'm getting. And so I am sick of voting for a party because it's not the other party. And I think the other party is going to, like right now, I think the Republican Party is a just abject failure and a disaster that is harming people at an unbelievable rate, right? Now, that doesn't mean that I think the Democrats have all the answers and that they're going to come in on their horse and
they're going to come in on the white horse
and
and save everybody.
Yeah. No, like I do not have any faith in the.
Yeah.
I don't have faith in the Democratic Party either. So that I'm running as a way to change that, because I understand we're playing a football game here. We have two parties and independence, but independence doesn't really mean anything. Like, I'm naturally more independent. So let me give you an example. When you file to run for Senate in Ohio, you have to collect signatures to get on the ballot, right? If you are running as a Republican or a Democrat, you need 1,000 signatures. If you run as an independent, you need 5,000. Oh, wow. If you run as a Democrat and you work with the Democratic Party, the political parties get discounted rates on things like post office shipping. So if you're sending out flyers and stuff, you get these like preferential rates. As an independent, you don't get those, right? So like, there's just a clear economic argument that you need to be associated with one of the political parties, unless you're like a Bernie Sanders, who obviously has been building his coalition and his support up for 40 years, right? So that's a really big part of it, is you just need the infrastructure. But also, I just want the Democratic Party to be better. I want them to to set the bar higher and to set the expectations for themselves and what they can do higher. And I'm not one of those folks that buys into the right-left dynamic. I think that we think of things on this right-left way because that's the system that we're in, and it makes a lot of sense for political parties to convince us that you're either left or right. But the reality
treating it like
is that
football teams make sense for marketing.
Yeah, totally. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Americans, and this has been shown time and time again, research after research shows this, is that the vast majority of Americans agree on almost every issue, including the controversial ones like abortion, gun safety, stuff like that. We're all roughly in the same camp. But if you listen to the political parties, it sounds like we're in this giant, desperate gap, right? And it's just not true. And then on top of that, we don't really have a left party in the United States. Like, our version of left is what the world would consider like center to center right, you know? So we don't really have lefts. Everyone's talking about Mamdani right now as the socialist or whatever. I was like,
he's a social democrat.
It's like,
that's about as far as he gets.
Yeah, it's like socialism light, if it even is socialism.
Yeah, I was covering, what was it, Matt Walsh? I think it was Matt Walsh's breakdown of Mamdani. It was either him or another insert conservative pundit here. And as he was just like, he's a communist, I went, oh, so he doesn't want there to be a state? That's weird that he ran for an office. Cool. And then they pivoted to he's a socialist in the same video. And I'm just like, oh, so he wants the workers of New York to own the means of production within New York. He doesn't want there to be any capital in New York. That's interesting. I haven't heard him say that. Where does he say that? Where does he say the thing that would make him that?
This is a really important point I've been trying to get across to people, is that your response right there was like, oh, so you're saying this and that means that, right? Mm-hmm. If you take a step back, like, they don't actually know or care what a communist or a socialist is, right?
Correct.
The largest socialist efforts that have been happening right now are from Trump. I mean, literally having the government grab like Intel, and now there's that Westinghouse deal that's going on where like literally the government is going to have control over this, like, they're controlling the means of production. That is socialism. Like, and the only one doing that and advocating for it is Trump right now. So I'm not really interested in somebody being like, oh, that's socialist. If somebody says that, I'm just like, okay, cool. So
he's like, cool, you've thrown thrown a label on me. What's the next step?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I have this really thing. I call them, I'm sure there's some academic term for it, but I call them dead statements. And it's like, you know, you'll be having a conversation with somebody about something and they'll be like, oh, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and it just sort of stops the conversation.
Yeah, it's called a thought terminating cliche.
Yeah, you're like, okay. You're like, that might be true, but it doesn't further the conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't get us anywhere.
Right?
It's a way to stop thinking for a little bit.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I get this too a lot, where I had a conversation about healthcare on a podcast, the other one, and somebody came on, they were talking about like, I don't think you understand what a nonprofit healthcare system would look like. Do you really want it so that hospitals and doctors aren't going to be able to make money? You know, they're not going to want to even work if they can't make money. I was like, I don't think you understand what a not-for-profit is.
Yeah, because
like,
people still
make
do
money.
Nonprofits for a living.
Yeah.
Being a nonprofit just changes how you file your taxes, and it changes how the money is distributed within the company. But it doesn't mean that people in the company don't make money.
And it means that it just means that you don't own the company too, right? Like, there's no the owner of the company is technically the federal government for a not-for-profit.
Well, I think too, these labels are inherently divisive for that exact reason you bring up, Chris. It's like there's a meaninglessness to them, where socialist, communist, whatever, it just means bad. Just like if you were to call someone a fascist
it's their
on the
way
right,
of saying the villain.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing as like the people on the
same
left.
thing with woke, right?
Yep.
Yeah, people just use woke for whatever allows them to feel good about themselves as they're attacking their neighbors. And that's another thing that I've been telling people. I have a lot of conversations that we're going all over the place, so stop me if you want to rein me in. But I have a lot of conversations about LGBT and folks in the LGBT. I had probably an hour conversation yesterday about it. And a lot of the conversations that are happening, one, are just not based in reality, right?
Yeah.
But two, it's not even about those issues. It's about trying to find a way to square your view of the world in a way that makes you feel comfortable. And if that means that you need to use this woke term to get there, then they get there. You ask 100 people, and again, the research shows this. You ask 100 people, particularly people on the right, what woke means, you're going to get 100 different answers because they don't care about the definition. They care about the emotional feeling that it gives them when they can band together with other people and complain about woke, right? Like, people complaining now that like Star Trek is woke now. I was like, what Star Trek have you been watching? Like the show that had the first interracial kiss,
which
was forced. But yeah,
the show that has people walking around in skirts in the background in TNG. Like, I'm sorry, but it's the show's been doing stuff like that for years. It's not new.
Yeah, and ultimately, like back to your point, Andrew, about labeling. I don't care about labels. I am not interested in labels. I tell people, because people naturally, when they're like, okay, you're running for Senate, what are you? What's your political party?
I'm a human being.
Yeah, I'm just like, you can call me whatever the fuck you want. I do not care. Like you can put me in the LGBT bucket if you wanted to. You could put me in any number of buckets if you wanted to. But at the end of the day, I'm more interested in actually having a conversation about how we can solve these problems that impact everybody, rather than worrying about who somebody is and is not.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, your seat of choice that you've picked up for this has been going into the federal Senate. What issues right now are super close to home for you as a business owner in Ohio, and as somebody who just wants to see literally a party figure out its identity and form into something that's functional for people? What issues hit the most close to home for you that you want to address going into the Senate?
Yeah, so the one I'm most passionate about, and when people ask me that question, I said, like, if I had a magic wand and could wave it, what would I do? It would be universal healthcare, like straight up. I do not think you can have a productive, happy, healthy society if folks are sick and not able to get care, and just the economic financial stress. I mean, you guys mentioned just the cost of insurance, when you're a small business, a private, freelancer, and it's just going to get worse, right? It's always getting worse. So that's what I would do. Ultimately, it's, I think, about when I say like we should be investing in us, it's about cost of living, making things affordable, providing freedom and opportunity for people. So when I say like, I think everybody should have access to a 4-year public education or a vocational school, that is an economic argument I'm making. It sometimes seems like it's maybe like a hippie frou-frou, everybody should, be taken care of argument or whatever. And it is in some sense, but it's also an economic argument. Whereas if you can get your young people educated and ready for their careers, and at the same time, you're not saddling them with an extreme amount of debt that's going to prevent them from getting ahead. Because for example, think about it, investing for retirement, right? The dollars that you invest when you're 20 because of compounding are way more valuable than the dollars you invest in 40, 50, right? So we're saddling our young people with this insane amount of student loan debt, which is preventing them from doing things like home ownership or investing in their IRAs and all of that stuff. These have compounding effects throughout the rest of their life for the next 40 years. So let's get them started off strong. Childcare, cost of living, food, housing is a big one. I was talking to Jenny, who was on the stream in one of her shows. I might have mentioned it at the stream, but there's currently 30 vacant unfilled homes for every homeless person that we have in the United States, right? Yep. So we could give everybody, I'm not saying like this is the solution, I'm just saying as an idea, we could give everybody that doesn't have a home a house, and we'd still have 29 homes sitting around empty, which also means that all of those homes are artificially contributing to the housing crisis. Because the cost of homes, the supply of homes is just sitting around, right? And then also, like, should we be letting VC and investment companies buy single family homes? Should we be letting foreign investors invest in residential property? And I don't think that we should. Because again, ask yourself, what is the goal here? And if the goal is to let a bunch of VCs make a bunch of money, then okay, we're doing great. But like, that's not my goal. My goal is to let as many people be able to afford a home and start building out their personal, little mini empire, their castle, with their family as early as they can. So if we kind of bundle this all up into cost of living, if you want to call it that, then I think that solves a lot of problems, which is kind of funny that we're talking about this, not funny, haha. But when I was doing public health stuff 15 years ago, when I was getting my master's degree, the number one thing you always come back to is poverty. If you want to take care of a society and get a society into a really competitive, healthy space, you have to eliminate the factors that contribute to poverty. And that's all we're doing right now. It just turns out because of the way we've let our system completely collapse on us that almost all of us are going to eventually be in poverty right now because it's getting very rough.
So would you say, because right now, obviously, there's more than one person that wants that Senate seat. Would you say, and I know this is probably a loaded question, would you say
Please,
that you
load away.
are, would you say that you're the best choice for that seat? And what about your platform makes your version of shaping that seat into what Ohio needs and America as a greater extension of that? What makes that seat better in your hands than anyone else's hands?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you sort of phrased it that way because I do like to remind people that even though I'm running for a Senate seat in Ohio, the Senate votes on bills that impact every state.
Yeah, your stuff
right?
is going to end up rippling out nationally.
Yeah, there's only 100 senators. And, we're seeing with the government shutdown and stuff right now, like each vote matters, right? Each vote is very important when you're looking at just 100 positions for the entire country. So that's a really important distinction. Obviously, I think I'm the best candidate. I wouldn't be running if I didn't. And I told my team when we first started this that if somebody comes in that I like, that I'm inspired by, that I think is going to do a great job, I will drop out immediately. I will tell my supporters to go support them, and I will contact them and help them out as best I can. I just don't see anybody right now. So there's currently 4 candidates on the Democratic side that are running for Senate. And then John Husted is running unopposed on the Republican side, and I don't see that changing. I think he's the sitting senator right now. I think he'll remain that way. So whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to be going up against him. I think it's pretty simple. Right now on the Democratic side, Sherrod Brown is the go-to choice. He's the establishment. He just lost his election last year to Bernie Moreno. Chuck Schumer came in from Washington to convince him to run. Funny enough, didn't contact any of the other Senate candidates running, just went straight to Sherrod. So take that for whatever you will. But my thing is like, look, I don't have any shade against Sherrod Brown, but I just don't think he's the leader that we need right now. I think we need somebody that is younger, that's got great ideas, bold ideas, that's going to be willing to step up and fight for those ideas. Because right now, we can get lost in policy conversation all we want, right? But if nobody is actively up there putting these ideas to the floor, then the policy conversations don't matter. Like, and I find it frustrating that a lot of folks on the Democratic side, they tend to undercut themselves before they even put a bill on the floor, right? They're just constantly like cutting themselves off at the knees. So that's a part of it. I also think that, to be blunt, I don't think Sherrod Brown understands what it's like to live in this world. I'm 44. I have my own business. I know what it's like to live in this economy. I know what it's like to work paycheck to paycheck. You're mentioning healthcare. I know what it's like to look at my healthcare bill every month and just be like, oh my God, this is outrageous. Like, when is the last time that Sherrod Brown has ever had to worry about paying for his rent or his groceries, right? I was at the grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and I think we talked about this. I got shrinkflated on my steak.
Yep.
Where I just like my steak was super expensive, and I'm noticing the cost of all these other things go up, and I'm paycheck to paycheck. Like, I own my own business, but I am not wealthy by any means, and I'm noticing all these things. So I think just understanding what it's like for normal people to be living in this world is really important, and I don't think a lot of people in the Senate do. And then on top of that,
like, just the same economic reality as a lot of us.
Yeah, totally. And Andrew and I were kind of chatting before the show, but I'm just looking at like just my experiences, right? Like, I know a lot about technology. I understand the internet. I understand web development. I've got a pretty good grasp on AI. I have a public safety background. I have a public health background, a healthcare background. Like, I've got all of these experiences that are not political experiences. And again, no shade against Sherrod Brown, but he has been a politician for like 30, 35 years. In the past 15, 20 years, I have been boots on the ground in the world doing stuff. making things happen, building businesses, teaching students. So I would put my skill sets against probably virtually any other senator out there when it comes to actually doing things in the world. And I'm running for Senate because I think that skill set that I have can be very powerful in this regard. But I do get a lot of people who are like, wow, you're shooting straight for the top, right? And I was like, I don't really see it that way because I'm not a career politician. I'm not starting it.
You're shooting for where you want to affect change. That's not shooting for the top. That's shooting for where you're effective.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't want to start at school board and then work my way up to, treasurer. And then because I don't want to be in politics for, until I'm 70 years old. Right. Like I want to come in and work extremely hard and make life better for the people of Ohio and the people of this country for, one or two elections, to be in that position. Again, this is a special election, so it'll be a 2-year term, and then I would have to run again for a full term. So running again for 1 or 2 terms if the people of Ohio like me and feel like I'm doing a good job. And then I'd like to go back to my life. I'd like to come back to my team and sitting on my couch with my dog and my cat. Yeah. And like I don't want to be a career politician. I want to be here. Actually, I like making things. I think it's the artist part of me. I like making things. And whether it's video games or communities or whatever. But I have a lot of experience. Just the small business community alone, right? Like my experiences in both running my own small business, but I've helped hundreds of small businesses get started and grow over the past 15 years. How many senators can say they've done that, right? I've been teaching for over a decade at multiple universities. How many senators can say that they've been doing that? Certainly no one's going to have the tech experience that I would have, or at least very few senators and very few people in Congress would.
Well, that's something that I think is actually, when you first reached out to me, I remember, first off, I was surprised. But secondly, I was assuming you were going to be some 70-year-old guy. I was assuming you were going to be some old guy running for Senate who just, career politician, whatever, wanted to take advantage of like a YouTuber. And when I looked into you, immediately seeing your background in gaming, seeing your background in the tech space, I got kind of excited over like, we'll have a gamer government, which I think is obviously the goal here. And when I posted about this to my audience and I said, hey, come check us out, we're going to be streaming, it'll be me and a VTuber, their first question was, would a guy running for Senate even know what a VTuber is? And I was like, yeah, this guy's been in the space. But it's funny that was their initial reaction, was to even doubt that you could understand the culture. And so I think as we move into an era where like more and more people are just voting with their gut. People are voting because Donald Trump is cool, not because his policies like speak to them on some genuine level, I think, to a certain extent.
Dude, remember in, I think the last year but multiple election cycles, the Republican Party didn't even put a platform up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they literally had no policy platform.
And like what I'm interested for you, if you want to speak on this a little bit, is like, your sale, I think your value add to most of the voters is the fact that you come from sort of this internet space, this tech space. And I'm curious as to like, in that specific area, what you think the government at large, the Democratic Party is failing at, and what you can almost bring to the table, not even in terms of policy, but just in terms of like knowledge and experience. Yeah,
well, I guess that's kind of like two shades. So one is like the campaign side. And I think we're seeing a lot of, again, Zohran Mamdani, Kate, or Kat she's running in Chicago. A lot of younger folks are using the internet and speaking the language. I did a podcast last week with Colin Moriarty from Sacred Symbols, who's an old IGN guy. And we ended up talking about games and stuff. And one of the things he mentioned, he's like, it's really wild how nobody understands the games industry because it's the largest entertainment industry in the world. It's bigger than music and movies combined × 2. And yet nobody in Congress understands anything about games. Like, just that alone is kind of wild, right? It's such a big industry. How can nobody understand it?
It's one of the main methods of entertainment in the United States. You have movies, you have books, you have video games. Those are your big entertainments for when you're inside your house. Or movies, I guess I'm just thinking like TV, all of that.
Yeah.
TV, movies, video, audio entertainment. Video games is next to those things. And for me, I grew up with gaming, so for me, when I think of games, I'm just like, okay, this is my other entertainment venue aside from books and watching things. That's what this is. For people to not have familiarity with that is quite literally alien to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, it is wild, but I think this is one of our strengths, right? Like anybody, again, painting with a broad brush here, but kind of anyone my age and younger, just gaming is just a part of their, even if they don't game a lot, gaming, social media, the internet is just kind of a part of what they know how to do, right? Yeah. Like my niece is 5 and she can run herself around an iPad like it's nobody's business, right? There's a lot of strength there. And I think the Democratic Party, well, both parties, but the Democratic Party, because it's got to head up its butt and it doesn't know what it's doing right now, it keeps talking about, well, how do we use youth culture and the internet as like a marketing tool instead of how do we actually have good candidates that have something to say and then use those systems to move that message out, right? It's a different strategy. And I'm a huge believer in finding the folks that have good messaging, good policies, and that are going to be fighters for it, and then using those systems to move that forward. And that's why I think when people ask me, like, against, again, not talking about Sherrod Brown a whole bunch, but can you beat Sherrod Brown? I was like, yeah, because I don't think he understands how to use any of these systems. I think that they're going to spend a tremendous amount of time and money and effort on traditional media in a way that's not going to be very effective. So flyers,
it's going to be the
TV ads.
Let's put an ad in the newspaper, okay? But for whom?
Yeah, and the other thing is that this has hurt the Democratic Party in general. So this isn't just necessarily a Sherrod Brown thing, but when you're working with consultants, it's like everything moves slowly because you have to like test everything and see if this message is going to hit. I don't do any of that. Actually, the social media person and the video person that I brought on helped me with GDEX. They're not gamers necessarily. They've been brought into the gamer fold because they helped me with GDEX. But I was like, hey, man, can you help me with my campaign? He's like, I don't do political campaigns. I don't know anything about them. And I told him, good.
Yeah, he's I don't want a traditional person on this campaign.
Yeah, I want somebody who's going to understand how to make interesting videos. Like, I don't know if you saw our first ad that we put out a couple of weeks ago, but like that ad's not like, I've never seen another ad like that before. And we intentionally did that. And we've got some other ads that we're doing along these lines. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I told my team, I just want to go and be me and listen to people and talk and have conversations. And we'll know pretty quickly if people are grooving on our message and what we're saying. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first part of kind of the question that you asked. But ultimately, at like the national level and as a senator, I say this, tooting my own horn a little bit, but like I'm a pretty sharp guy. I learn things pretty quickly, and there's very few people that can outwork me. And so if I end up getting into the Senate, like I think I can quickly work to build coalitions, to start advocating for things. And if, let's just say, in a perfect world, I win next year and there's another blue wave, the coalition of people that I've been working with, if a lot of those folks get in, then we're already at day one, we are ready to get going because we've already been talking and coordinating and deciding what we're going to do.
Everything you need to do at that point. You've already done the pre-work.
And I've in the back of my mind, Mr. Schumer, you can cut this up if you want and use it. But if I get elected and I meet Chuck Schumer, again, I don't have anything against him, but I'll be straight up with him. I was like, dude, I'm going to be one of the biggest pains in your ass because I want to get things done. I want to get things done that help people. And I don't want this nonsense back and forth about, well, we can't do this because it's not centrist enough or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Let's just start doing the things that help people that people are asking for. The vast majority of people want universal health care.
So
they
how do
want
we do
pre-K. That? Yeah. So, and that's wild because we can do it in any number of ways. We already have the Medicare for all. Like that has been Bernie Sanders' push for a long time. There's lots of different ways to do it. And how do I phrase this? I don't think that the issue is that we don't know how to do these things. I think the core issue is that we don't have enough people in Congress that have the will and the resolve to make it happen. We're not missing out on money. It's policy is why we can't get this stuff done. We are the greatest country on earth, supposedly the greatest country in the history of countries. And you're telling me that we can't get people health care? Like, come on.
So you'd basically be willing to fight against even within the Democratic Party, fighting against the Democratic Party, going, you guys are not doing what the people need or what the people want. Stop trying to move further and further to this more center position. Start doing the things that people need.
Yeah, because it's not even we keep having these conversations because we've all been sort of trained by osmosis into political speak, right? But like half these fucking people aren't even going towards the center. Like, what does the center even mean? It's this nonsense phrase that people say when they're trying to be pragmatic. And I have this saying I've been using for a long time, which is, I'm sick and tired of a lack of vision being masqueraded as pragmatism. It's not that these people are being pragmatic and that they're slowly moving it. It's that they don't have an actual bold vision and they're not willing to fight for it. Dude, I run multiple businesses. I know what it's like to be pragmatic. I know how to be careful and make strategic decisions and smart decisions around finances to keep your business afloat. They're not talking pragmatism. I think they're talking weakness, to be honest. And it's really, really frustrating. And a part of it too is, and I think this is one of my strengths, is a lot of these folks, like, they are career politicians. If they're not in Congress, what else do they do, right? Maybe they're a lobbyist, maybe they're doing a speaking tour, writing a book. I don't care. If I could go in, even in 2 years, right? Like, this is just like a hypothetical fun thing, but let's just say I get in 2026 and I go in 2026 and 2027 and I start passing things like housing affordability, universal health care, no insider trading. I think that's a big one. That's something I'd like to get rid of just for a corruption thing, even though it doesn't help people in their day-to-day lives. Helping with food access and affordability. And if I do all of that and I make people's lives better and then I get voted out in 2028, I'll walk away happy because I don't need this job.
You'll accomplish the things that you've done and you have an established job to go to afterwards. Your identity is not your politics.
Yeah, I'm doing this because I think that I can add a lot of value to my country, a country that I love and a state that I love. But I do not need this job for the next 30 years. It's not a part of my identity. It's not a part of who I am. And if that means, like you said, if I can go in and do things that really help people, and I for some reason get voted out because Ohio it's a competitive state, then okay, I'll walk away happy.
I think like something that often gets overlooked is this idea that people neatly fall into Democrat or Republican. This idea that like people who have some of these like left-wing views, all their views are left-wing. Nothing's ever going to be right-wing and vice versa. And I think when the parties talk about, to your point about moving towards the center, it's this idea of appealing to someone who doesn't exist, who has very neutral opinions on everything. Whereas I think what really happens is people have a lot of strong opinions on a lot of things, and which party they go to just happens to be what is their strongest opinion. And what I'm hearing from you over the course of this interview, Chris, what I'm hearing from you over the course of this interview is that affordability is like your biggest key issue. That is the biggest like kind of North Star for you. That's what I'm hearing, at least.
Yeah, I think it's affordability is sort of the front way of saying that, but it's giving people as much freedom and opportunity as they can. And you cannot be free to live the life the way you want if you are stuck in survival mode, right? Yeah. So we need to create these avenues for upward mobility financially, and then also make it so that you can go and live a good life. I don't think anybody, I know you're going to ask another question, so I apologize.
No, it's fine. No,
I don't think anybody's sitting around being like, everybody should have a mansion, right? Like normal folk like us are just saying it shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, the Democrats already have a mansion. We have problems with them.
Yeah.
His name's Joe.
But it just shouldn't be this hard to live, right? It shouldn't be this hard to, you should be able to work a full-time job, have a family, put some money aside for fun, maybe a trip or something, and put money aside for retirement so you could retire with dignity. It should not be this hard while the best of us are living the best lives. I mean, the Elon Musks and the Bezoses and the whatever, they are living better than any king has ever lived in the history of humanity. And by asking them to be a little less greedy and acknowledge that the reason they were able to get there is because of the tens of trillions of dollars in investments and effort and Don't forget the people who have served and lost their life to make sure that this country can function. Jeff Bezos could be the smartest motherfucker in the world, but he is not building Amazon without the investments that we have made in this country, right? Same with Steve Jobs, same with Bill Gates, same with Elon Musk came in rich already, so, you know, whatever. But
you don't build something without the workers and the money that's being utilized. You don't build something without that. You're not a one-man army.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos isn't going to go and start paving roads and building airports and connecting internet distribution systems so that he can have a bookstore, right? Like that existed because we created the infrastructure to allow it. And I do not think it is unfair, and I do not think it is controversial to expect to pay back into the system that allowed you to get there.
And I think like what drew me to your campaign and sort of your ideas in general is this fact, as we touched on a bit, that you straddle a bit. You are working class, you've struggled, you've come up, you don't come from money, and at the same time, you've also run a small business. You know sort of the hurdles of like trying to operate a business and kind of chase the American dream within the system as it currently exists. And I guess what I'm most interested to sort of hear from you is we've touched on a couple things of affordability. I've heard housing, public transportation, food costs. I'm just curious, education as well. That's a big one as well. I'm curious in terms of just one of those, because I think anytime you get involved in the federal Senate, you can't do everything. You always got to pick something. I'm curious as to what you think is the biggest thing holding Americans back right now, even though obviously it's a combination of factors. I understand that to a certain extent.
Sure. I mean, I think it ultimately all roads lead back to healthcare. I think, I think the other stuff like the grocery prices, gas prices, electric prices are more front facing. But at the end of the day, health is what we have, right? Like that's the linchpin for everything.
Yeah, if you don't have your health, you have zip.
Yeah. And it's kind of like people talk about the latte effect, right? Like, well, don't drink your $5 lattes. It's not the $5 lattes that are keeping people broke. It's the fact that the housing rates are increasing, 10 to 20% year over year during the pandemic, while our income is increasing at 2%, right? Like you can drink all the lattes you want. Maybe you'll be ramped up from the caffeine, but like, it's making a marginal difference, right? Yeah. And healthcare is the same way. It's like you can bust ass as much as you want, you can save as much as you want, you can try to set yourself in a position for success, and then you get sick and it's over. My best friend, he's got stage 4 kidney cancer. We were just chatting the other day because he was kind of looking at his builds. He does his immunotherapy. It's a 3-month like treatment session, and he does it every 3 weeks. Each one of those sessions is over $200,000.
Yeah, who's supposed to be able to fucking afford that?
Yeah, and that's not counting all the other expenses that, the doctor's expenses, the MRIs, the X-rays. That's just for the immunotherapy itself, right? And another thing that people don't think about is all the ancillary expenses that he had to do. So he unfortunately, because of a tumor in his leg, he fractured his leg, which then made it so he had to go and buy a bunch of things like, the push cart, the wheel carts, canes. He had to install handrails in his house, stuff like that. Like there's all these
living became a lot more expensive, and not because he had to pay a medical bill.
Yeah. I mean, and this is exactly what the disabled population has been telling us for 50 years, right? Like it's really expensive to be disabled. Not only is your ability to earn income inhibited, but just the day-to-day getting around is more expensive, right? And so I think that we need to handle the healthcare system, and we need to fix it like now. We should have fixed it 40 years ago when I was born, but second best time to plant a tree, I guess. But we are in a space where, and a lot of people don't think this way. It's still a very I see a lot of very selfish and cruel conversations on the internet, and I try not to get too bogged down in what's on the internet because half of it's bots or whatever. But it's just like, I'm paying my insurance, and why don't you stop being a fat slob and take care of yourself, and then your insurance costs wouldn't be so big. It's like, dude, every single one of us is just one accident away from financial destitution potentially.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things don't have anything to do with you. You wake up in the morning, you take a shower, you take your dog out for a walk, and you drive to work and you get hit by a semi truck. And then all of a sudden you are paralyzed from the waist down or whatever. Or even if it's not even that severe and you're just out of work for 2 to 4 weeks. What if your job just dumps you, right? You've lost your income, you've lost your insurance, because of an accident that you didn't cause, you had nothing to do with. And so the stack gets thrown around, and I know there's different ranges of it, but it's about 60% of bankruptcies are medically related in some way, and over 80% of those people had health insurance. So these aren't just quote unquote losers sitting around not doing anything. So that would be my thing. And then I would start working on some of the smaller things, because I think a lot of the grocery affordability, electricity affordability, a lot of those issues for right now are very acute issues related to things like tariffs, data centers. They're misuse.
They're comorbidities of other problems.
Yeah, that's a way you could phrase it. So I think that we could do a lot of stuff around like affordability that would take off maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 of financial stress off of a family in a year. But my worry is that, not that you asked me this question, but I was thinking about it this morning with the election results the way they were. As my worry is what's going to happen is what always happens in this country, which is the Republicans come in, they fuck everything up. The pendulum swings back to the Democrats. The Democrats don't learn any lessons. They're just like, oh, we're going to win because we have better policies or whatever. And then they don't
win back the power.
Yeah. And then they don't do anything when they have the power back. They're not going to implement any of these, name me, this is rhetorical. You don't have to do it, but like name me, a handful of politicians that are even fighting for universal health care besides like Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Yeah, once you move outside of the squad, you go back to the conversation that you had before of the Democrats kind of being the party of zero identity, being the party of let's try to find the compromise. To do the Michelle Obama thing, it's the party of, well, they went low, we're going to go high, and that's proven ineffective. It's not only proven ineffective, but it's not getting anything accomplished that people need.
Yeah, I agree. I have this thing where I like to look at the answer below the answer, because I think a lot of political talk these days just gets caught in like the front-facing veil of whatever we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And stuff like that I find interesting, because really what that says to me is it's not about going low. It's about being a forceful fighter for your values. And at the end of the day, like, I think that's what Trump is. Now, I don't think Trump has any actual values, and I don't think he actually cares about the stuff he's saying, but he gives that across. That's like, I'm here, I'm fighting for you, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to do all these things. He doesn't actually do them, right? And he doesn't actually know how any of this stuff works, and he doesn't care.
But he's got the veneer of it, and that's all people are voting on effectively.
And I think we talked about this on the election. So Ohio, for example, about 810,000 people are Democrats, registered voters are Democrats. About 1.5 million are Republicans. 5.7 million are unaffiliated. So what that says to me is that there is a giant group of people that are our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues that look at these two political parties and like, these people are fucking disasters. And so if you could have somebody step up there that's like, I believe that we should be giving children lunches at school, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And you have to tell me why you think we shouldn't be feeding children, right?
And then when you get the politician answer where they beat around the bush for some reason, you just go, so you didn't answer my question. That's just what I'd like the record to show real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And again, no shade on Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, I guess maybe a little shade on him, but I saw he was in an interview the other day. This was right after the election. And he gave this like 3-minute answer, and like halfway through it, I was just like, I'm moving on, because he said nothing. He didn't push anything forward. He didn't inspire. It was just a very political sort of answer. And now I fully understand as a newbie here in the political game that a lot of what I'm doing, a lot of what I'm saying, is considered by traditional politics to be very naive. And Andrew, you've hit on this a few times where it's like, it is hard to get stuff done through the Senate, right? But at the end of the day, you're never going to get anything done if nobody's at least trying, and nobody is trying right now.
Also,
and I would rather be there on the floor every day fighting for these things, and then when people push back on them, asking them why we can't do this. Why can we not give everybody health care that would be more affordable to begin with? Why can we not stop our rising education costs while simultaneously providing opportunities for people to enter into careers and increase their economic productivity and their mobility, right? We can do all these things. We can do all these things. Mm-hmm. And sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was gonna say something a little mean towards Elon Musk. I'll scale it back a little bit.
Why not? So in essence, I would just say
you're not taking donations from the guy. You got no corporate donors.
There's no reason. There's no reason to scale it back. What I was all I was gonna say was that the only argument against naivete is when tradition is proving to not fail. Well, you're being naive about something. Okay, well, show me where tradition is solving this problem. And then I will be A-okay with that. But as it's currently not solving the problem.
I think we talked about that last week on the election stream. Is it would be one thing if all we were doing was sitting around complaining about the Democratic Party, but they were getting things done. Yeah. But they're not getting things done. So, like, I would be totally fine with a quote-unquote pragmatic centrist Congress that got stuff done if they got things done, but they're not. They're quote unquote pragmatic centrists, but all that really means is no one's willing to take a stand on anything and make something happen. So I'm just like, this sounds silly, but let me give you an example. I'm a board gamer. I have a board game design company as well. And when you do like strategic board games, like competitive board games against people, one of the things that you kind of think about as strategically is like, well, I could do this, but then, Andrew is going to do something against me, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just put Andrew in the position to do it. It's like, okay, you say you're going to do it. I'm now going to make you do it. Mm. So put up or shut up, right? I'm going to force you into a situation where you now have to either counter my move or you admit that you were bluffing this whole time.
That's
right?
That's what we try to teach people in Magic really early on, is that when they have that thought of, oh, my opponent's going to have a counterspell, your immediate thought should be, then put it on them to do it.
Yeah, because there is a thing too. Political capital is a real thing, right? Let's say, for example, just healthcare, because we keep talking about healthcare, but let's just do it. Or SNAP might be an even better one right now, right? Put the SNAP on the floor and be like, we are going to start paying all of the food benefits. And then the people that vote against it, whether they're in your party or the opposite party, force them to take a vote on it. Because now you can use that. And this is something the Republicans are really good at. They'll put stuff on the floor that they don't think will pass or even care if it passes. And then they'll use the votes as a mechanism of attack later on. So put people in a situation where, again, you don't want to feed children. Well, I want to feed children. So why do you not want to feed children? Because that seems pretty gross to me, right? Just as an example.
No, but I think what you're saying speaks to like a real truth here, where I do think, like, again, as much as I don't like Trump's policies, I think part of what is enabling him to get stuff done is using his social media presence to bully Republicans to support his platforms, even when they're not necessarily the best. And I think like a lot of what we are seeing, and perhaps this is just the benefit of hindsight, but like the Green New Deal, as an example, I think when it came out, maybe there were some issues with the legislation. But when we look at how China has electrified their grid and we compare that to where the US is at right now, we're clearly behind. And we should have been moving on this around the time that AOC, this outsider, was presenting the Green New Bill. And it was a lot of the reluctance of the Democratic establishment to sort of embrace this new idea that has now put us in this place where we're playing catch up. And I think, again, that's the area that you have your like value add, is that you can see that just from being on the ground. And there is a moment, I think, where it's about not destroying the establishment necessarily, but reshaping it, showing it the future, and like bringing us all there together, as opposed to just being bogged down by everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm ultimately excited about. Is I don't feel like I have to defend the policies of the past. Like Medicaid, I would be very surprised if Medicaid survives the next couple of years with the way things are going, right? So now we don't need to talk about Medicaid anymore. Like, we don't need to keep defending Medicaid. We start defending getting people the care they need and helping them out and making sure that
and just however
children
that ends up manifesting.
And like there's this Democrats, for whatever reason, tend to be it's just this defensive mechanism. I think a lot of it's because we're kind of like policy nerds, and we want to dig into it. We figure if we can figure out the truth and the right way to do it, we can pass it. But that's not the environment we're in right now. Trump doesn't care about policies, right? Like the conversations we're having around MAGA and white nationalism and whatever, like these are not policy conversations, right? Like they're manifesting as some policies at the end of the day, but that's not really, it's more of an emotional identity thing that's going on. And if you want to call it identity, is an American that's trying to make life better for everybody else, including myself, because I live in this world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then I'm curious, what do you think currently, because I think we've talked a lot about how the DNC doesn't have a North Star right now, like very much ever since we lost Obama, basically, like, what was that at this point? Almost 10 years ago, the DNC has been very much floundering for a path forward. So I guess, again, magic wand part of the conversation. But if you could set the DNC's new North Star, what would you point it at? Would it be healthcare? Would it be affordability in general, utilities? Like, what do you think is going to be the thing that's going to resonate with voters and improve their lives at the same time?
Yeah. So my take on this is actually, I think we need to take a step back. And it was mentioned a while ago in the chat, like kind of play to your strengths right now. One of the strengths for the Democrats is the actual policies are better, but their way of marketing that and portraying that is terrible. So I think right now we need to step away, even from what you said. You named like specific things. Is it healthcare? Is it education? Is it whatever? I think it's all of those, but I don't think that's how we phrase it. I think that it is, hey, I am here. I understand what it's like, and I am asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust that even if we don't agree on everything, that I have your back, and I am going to try to make your family's life better. And I'm going to make it more affordable, and I'm going to work on providing you freedom and opportunity by doing all of these other things, but not getting caught in the conversation about these specific policy things. Because at the end of the day, most folks are just trying to make it through the day and take care of their families. They don't have time, and they don't care about the 10-point plan for universal health care coverage, right? That's why we have a representative democracy, so that people can go and do the hard work of learning this stuff for them, because it's complex and it takes a while. So what I'm doing is I'm going out there and I'm like, look, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, okay? I'm not even trying to convince you to vote for me. What I'm asking you to do is to trust me, to trust that I've got your back and that I'm going to look out for you, again, even if we don't agree on everything. And if you can do that, I think we can do some amazing things going into the future. And I think that we can make a much better world for all of us and our family. And again, be the economic and cultural sort of powerhouse for the next 50 to 100 years. And if you can't trust me for whatever reason, that's cool too. But just know that no matter what we're doing, I am always going to be working as hard as I can to make life better for normal folks. And that's kind of the message at the end of the day that I think will resonate, because I think that people are just looking for an authentic person who gets them, and when they go to Congress is going to be working diligently to get us all out of this hole.
So it's almost a return to what the Democratic Party was under Clinton, from a messaging perspective, not from a policy perspective. But sure. Like, because I think Republicans always used to be the party of big business, and Democrats were the party of the worker. And I do think, around through Obama into early Trump that swapped a bit. So what I'm hearing from you is sort of like, we need to get back to making workers and people feel heard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yes, you're correct. But even more simply, like, again, at the end of the day, like, what the fuck are we all doing here? Right? Like, if we're not trying to make a country that is taking care of its people and, moving towards progress, whether it's economic or cultural or creative or science, like, what are we doing? If we're just trying to create a country where a very small number of folks can just obtain an obscene level of wealth and live in a way that nobody else in the history of humanity is able to live, then, I mean, I guess we're doing a great job. Yeah, but that's not the country I want to build.
A trillionaire. We can do that. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the point is to make life better. And I think we're actively working against that. So again, like my friend who has cancer, right? I don't know if you saw the article about like the mRNA vaccines that are showing early promise of like literally curing cancer. Like we might literally have a vaccine that can cure cancer, and then Trump cuts $500 million to cancer research for mRNA vaccines. Like, what are we doing, right? And I firmly think that we are on the cusp. I think right now America's sort of having this sort of psychotic break, and we're trying to figure out who we are as a nation. And there's a lot of bad influences that are taking advantage of that. But I really have faith in people, and I do firmly believe that if we are able to get back together and start moving in a direction, I mean, the progress that we've had over the past 100 years could look like a drop in the bucket compared to the stuff that we're able to do. I mean, literally, imagine a world where you can go and live the life that you want to and have your family and your children, and at the same time, we've cured cancer, right? Like, I mean, we could be expanding people's lifespans by 20, 30, 40, 50 years potentially. But instead, we're actively working against this. Since I'm ranting, I'll rant for a second. When Doge came in February, right? You remember, like, one of the first things they did is they canceled all of the R&D grants going out to universities and hospitals. Yeah. Like, that is going to have a ripple effect for probably 5 to 10 years. Like, you can't just go and restart clinical trials. Like, there's a protocol that has to get followed. So there were people that were undergoing cancer trials, for example, and then the funding got cut, the trial stopped. They never got re-enrolled back into the trial, and many of them probably died. You know, maybe they would not have survived from the trial. We don't know, but those protocols just can't be restarted out of nothing. So this willy-nilly, chaotic way that everything is happening has real, tangible harm to people. And I think we need to be more vocal about that as well.
Yeah, very well said, honestly. I think, yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it does feel like people are sort of kind of pulling the wool over their eyes a little bit. And it's funny when you look at the election results, you look at the people who are winning, it is the people kind of promising to change the system, and people that I think feel like, or that voters feel as though are working for them, as opposed to working for some kind of grander idea of, like, you know, how things are going to go down the line. I'm curious.
Systems systems are really, really important. We don't kind of talk about it, but systems thinking is something I'm always really big on. And there was a quote that I really loved. I don't know where it came from, but a teacher said it a lot in my grad school for public health. But it's, every system is perfectly set up to give you the result that you get. And in essence, what that means is that you get the results that you get in real time because of how the system is created. So if you want different results, you need to recreate the system to give you those results, right? So just another silly example, think about emergency rooms in hospitals, right? You go in the emergency department, and at a larger hospital, there might be 24 or 30 bays of emergency rooms, right? Each one of those rooms is set up exactly the same. Every drawer, the sink's in the same place, the electrical outlets are in the same place, every drawer has the same stuff in it, so that a doctor, a nurse can go from room to room and they know where everything is. It's efficient, it saves time, it saves money, it saves lives. I don't think we need to like construct a government that's like that fine-tuned, right? But I do think we need to understand that if we are getting the results we're getting now, that is a direct reflection of the rich and the powerful and corporations stacking the deck in their favor for the past 30, 40 years, so that the system, just the path of least resistance, gives them the results they want. And we can go in, we can create systems that will give us the results that we want. And I sort of, this sounds really silly, but I sort of consider like a lot of this, it's like throwing a good party, right? When you throw a good party, you don't invite everybody and then have an agenda that details every minute of what everyone's doing. You set the stage for creating a really good experience. Maybe you have music, maybe you have food, maybe you have a couple activities here or there, but then you just let people mingle and talk and have conversations and create their own like little experiences.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. The system, so that when people operate within the system, you'll get a certain result.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what we can do with America is we can set up a system where all of us feel that instead of like having this weight on us where we're all like stressed out and we have this tension because we're in survival mode, that we can sort of explore outwards and then start start businesses or being innovative or picking up art or whatever it happens to be. A lot of folks on the right rip on Hollywood all the time. And trust me, we can talk about Hollywood all day long. There's a lot of nonsense in Hollywood. Don't get me wrong. But Hollywood is probably the single greatest factor in spreading American culture across the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I can.
Well, I
So,
think,
Andrew, I think you had a question.
no, yeah. I was going to say, so to the question I was going to ask, seeing the results from the midterms, I guess, like, well, it's interesting. You actually touched on this a little bit, so I'll modify what I was going to ask. Like, you said that you were a little worried about the Democrats doing what they always do. I think we can agree, where they get into power, they don't do much. They kind of fix half of what was broken and then sit on that, call that an accomplishment, and boom, it goes back to the Republicans next time anyway. So I guess, like, how do you feel with the results of the midterms? Does that make you feel hopeful? Or if anything, do you kind of feel the opposite and you feel like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak?
Oh, no, I definitely feel hopeful. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've talked a lot about sort of like pessimistic things here because I just think the nature of the times, right? But I'm a really optimistic guy. And I think our future is actually remarkably bright if we can set our sights on it, to your analysis, like our North Star, right? Our guiding star. And I think that the elections on Tuesday were a very clear repudiation of what is happening in Washington, even though Trump wasn't officially on the ballot. I mean, they picked up seats in Georgia. It wasn't just, blue places like Virginia or whatever. It was everywhere, right? So I think that's a very, very good sign that a lot of the people are being maybe starting to wake up and see what's going on and are starting to become more engaged, particularly for an off-year election, right? An off-year election, no less. But my point is now that we, and I'm using the royal we as like sort of Democrats here, but it's not a political party. The people that want to see positive change happen, you, me, everyone that's in the chat or whatever, it's now the time to make those things happen. Right. And for me, I'm a person that likes to get things done. So when I go to Congress, my goal is to get these things done, to work on them. And I'm fine staying up till 2, 3 in the morning, working on a bill if we need to. And so ultimately I am energized and refreshed. It was a breath of fresh air to see those election results. I mean, you were on the stream with me, right? I think it was like 9:30. I was like, okay, well, I had planned on it to 11 because I thought we were going to have to wait for some of this stuff, and they were getting called by 9:30. So we just ended up talking about Metal Gear for an hour or whatever. So that's ultimately what it is like, again, it's the answer under the answer, right? The answer is we saw a clear repudiation of the administration and what was going on in the election. So now the real answer is that those that were elected and those that are trying to get elected and those that are just wanting to make the world a better place now have to step up and make it happen.
Okay. So that does give us a question for 2026, though. We've had a really, really good set of elections here that definitely feel like they point to the winds shifting a little bit. I know that when I was on that stream, I said I'm kind of worried that this is more of a pendulum swing than anything, but I'm also willing to be perfectly optimistic. So how do you think these last elections and the ones in 2026, how do you think they're going to affect policy over the next few years? And also, how do you think that's going to affect our culture? Because there's been a lot of talk, especially on like right-wing news outlets and even right-wing influencers trying to say that, we have to, like, politics flows down south of culture or culture flows down south of politics. There's a lot of conversation about those things intermingling together. So, I don't know, I'd just like to get your take on how you think we're going to be able to take advantage of this moment.
Yeah, again, I think it's one of those things that's like, the answer is simple. It's not necessarily easy, but the answer is, if we have the best policies, let's start delivering on them and showing people that we can make their lives better, right? If we can get folks a little less stressed because of their finances and maybe a little less stressed because they're worrying about security, and then maybe a little bit less stressed about their family, and maybe they get to go on a vacation that they didn't think they were going to get to go on. Or, I mean, I'm particularly, what is Christmas going to look like this year, right? With gifts and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's,
I think if we can start showing people that we are making their lives tangibly better, then you have that answer and people will start to support you, right? Like, I mean, think about the friends and the people that you have in your ecosystem, your friend group. You probably spend time and hang out with the friends that make you feel good about yourself or that you feel support you. And you probably spend a little less time with the friends that maybe require a lot of energy or whatever, right? Like, let's be the party that is helping people live better lives. And I firmly believe that if you offer a really good product, that people will come around to it. And then also, I think that will tie into your other question, the culture question, which is it's really hard to have any meaningful thoughts or conversations around culture when you're just stressed all the time, right? That's why a lot of these like dog whistle things work, why these anti-trans things work. It's because everybody is so stressed to the hilt. They're not quite sure what the answer is. They're not quite sure who they can believe, who they can trust. And somebody gives them a like, it's those guys over there. Those are the guys making your life more difficult. It's those Latino immigrants that are stealing all your jobs. It's not true, but
it makes
when
people
you're
feel
stressed
better about themselves.
Yeah, it's just when you're really stressed and you don't know what to do, like you'll just cling on to anything that's going to help you move in a direction. And so if we can get, if we could, in all honesty, if we just build a society that takes care of people and helps folks out and makes them feel like they have an opportunity to have a family or start a job or whatever, that there's something up around the corner. They're building towards something. I think humans in general, we really want to feel like we're building towards something, like we're building our little empires and, you know, our bank accounts are getting a little bit bigger. It's not just about the money in the account. It's about that sense of relief you have knowing that if your car breaks down, you can go buy a car, right? Like if you have to take your kid to a doctor and that's going to be $200. If you don't have $200, like that's crushing. And so getting people into a better spot, I think will honestly relieve a lot of this consternation. But I don't know, you tell me, like, I mean, Andrew, you have a whole video series about how you kind of came out of some of these things. Like what are some of the top of mind things for you?
I mean, I think when it comes to one of the things that I found difficult in my own journey is there is so much, I describe it in the video as inertia, but like your identity very much gets wrapped up in the idea of believing that, to the point where any kind of policy, anything pushing back, even things you might encounter, it's really hard to then take a step back and say, oh, this is affecting me negatively. Maybe I should think about things differently. I think it really is, for the most part, to kind of what you were saying, like you're making things economically livable enough that people don't feel as though there are problems that affect them to the extent that they need to kind of go to these more radical places, elect people like Trump. And I guess like top of my mind, I'd say a lot of the stuff is social, like male loneliness, I think is a big issue. Of course, I think everyone's talking about it, but I don't know that anyone has like solutions to it necessarily. And then I think secondarily is sort of this cultural idea of the promise of the white picket fence and the house and the 2.3 kids, which I don't even know is bad for people who want it, but there are people who don't want it, and sort of our societal idea of like that's what success looks like is a lot of what I think is hurting people these days, chasing something that they don't necessarily like, doing things they don't like doing, because then they feel like, well, once I get that, I'm good, I'm set all of a sudden. That's at least for me how I feel. Yeah,
I think that's a very astute way of looking at it, and I think this sort of answers the other question, where I think just having a cultural leader that can help people feel like there is opportunity out there, and that opportunity can come in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to be this one thing, because Trump is a cultural leader. It's just the culture that I think he's putting forward is just kind of vile and reprehensible.
Hot garbage.
Yeah. And so like letting people know that like, hey, things are okay. The Latino guy around the corner, he's not coming for you. The trans person just wants to use the bathroom. They're not trying to start any shit, right? Like we can create those little cultural touch points that I think will kind of pull us back together. because I even in the past 4 days, I have talked to a whole bunch of LGBT people, trans people, MAGA people. I have not gotten the sense from any of them that they're trying to harm the other person. This is just normal folks, right? They are not coming after your kids and trying to steal your home. Like, everybody is just trying to do the best they can. And I honestly believe that we do want the best for each other. It's just the volume has been turned up so loud. So something I think that the left can do and can be better at is I always tell people, don't turn allies into enemies. There are folks that do have your back. They might just not be sure the right way to do it or to talk about it. So, somebody who's like, hey, I would like to support, I don't know, gay marriage and trans people, but maybe they're not using the right language or they're not sure where to start. Use that as an opportunity to give them an off-ramp, kind of what you were saying, Andrew. Provide an off-ramp for them to get out of the place they're in and start moving towards this other direction. And you don't have to have all the answers for them, and you don't have to sit down for 4 hours and give them a lecture, but just let them feel that they can be like, hey, I have a gay friend, but my church is telling me this thing, right? But my gay friend is not that thing. And I'm having this dissonance between the two. Give them a space where they can kind of like work that out without jumping down their throats on stuff, right?
I think if we can be their bartender.
Yeah, I use the term patience and grace all the time. Just give people patience and grace. And that doesn't mean you have to like acknowledge people's dehumanizing of you or anything like that. But work to like, instead of ratcheting up a lot of the stuff, work to either diffuse it or to kind of step back a little bit on some of these conversations. We don't have to have a conversation about everything all the time. That being said, I do want to remind folks that there are serious things happening that we cannot just let slide, right? But there is. I talk to lots and lots and lots of people who want to do the right thing, and they're just honestly not sure what to do. And some of that actually, funny enough, ties back to the first thing you mentioned about the third spaces, is that we've lost a lot of those places where quote unquote normal folk would be able to interact with people that are not like them, right? It's way easier to fall down like these alt-right holes when you're alone on the internet all the time. But if you start hanging out with people, I mean, one of the big things for me, I've been in, around, and a part of the LGBT community since I was like 16. I've gone to a bazillion gay clubs. I've got a bazillion gay and trans friends.
If you want to meet the trans people, go to the Warhammer 40K competition. That is where you will find them. I promise you,
dude. I'm in the gaming world. Like it's raining men, hallelujah over here, right? Like it's being around those people, being around different people, having a coffee with them, playing a game with them, whatever it is. You'll just start to realize that, like, again, we're all roughly the same. We might be kind of coming at it from a different way, or maybe expressing ourselves in a slightly different way, but we're more or less all in the same boat.
I think what you say there is actually really important, because something that I tried to get across when I made my video kind of telling people about my journey is the idea that the entire time I was drifting farther and farther right, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping people. I specifically remember in one of my more transphobic states having a discussion with my friend where I was like, of course I don't want trans people in the military because, like, their rates of hurting themselves are so high that I don't want to keep them around firearms. Now I realize that's like an insane thing to say. But at the time in my head, it was like, I'm helping by denying you access to these spaces. That's me trying to help you. And I do think at the end of the day, like, there is a language problem to what you're saying. There is a problem of like, not listening, but also not hearing what the other person is saying, not understanding. And I think that, like, much like you say, people do just want things to be good for most people. But a lot of times the way that gets kind of turned around is in sort of a negative sense.
You see this. I think there's a big language problem that's happening, and a lot of it is because there are some people that are weaponizing that language specifically to create division. So there's a huge language problem around trans stuff, right? Where it's just like, well, you're not, you were born a boy, you're a boy. You're born a girl, you're a girl. Like, yes, but like, I don't know. The name Jill, is that a boy's name or a girl's name? And be like, oh, it's a girl's name. It's like, why? Like, there's no chromosome attached to the word Jill, right? Like, it's a societal social convention that the name Jill is typically, a male's name. That alone, I think, starts to get people thinking about, transness isn't about like morphing your biology, even though obviously there's a surgery component or whatever, but it's not about morphing your chromosomal biology. It's about a social state in which people feel more comfortable being this way and expressing themselves in this way. Because even a lot of the things, I kind of find this funny. There's a little thing. It's like, I feel like almost if anything that like super like kind of on the right would be around, it would be transness, because at least transness generally has a pretty clear male female dichotomy, right? Like, as opposed to non-binary and stuff. Yeah, I realize it's a silly example here, right? But the general point is that the language that's being conveyed around this makes it really hard to have an actual conversation in a meaningful way. And these sort of societal conventions that we have, or I think you said it was tradition, right? Like around the name Jill or whatnot.
Yeah, that's the reason that I would go to, because it's the reason I'd use tradition is just because I'm really like, my brain's very fallacy corrupted, or I'm just like, aha, I want to point out the fallacy, so I'll just go, yeah, it's tradition, we use that, right? Okay, cool. Here's this fun fallacy called the appeal to tradition fallacy. Sure. Like it's for a setup.
Yeah. Well, I also think tradition's a good word to use, because it's one of the things I again, around transness, we just kind of got in this, but like LGBT, there's a lot of like academic speak when we talk about these issues sometimes, and it comes across as being a little like hoity-toity, whereas the word tradition, like everybody gets tradition, right? We have Thanksgiving, it's a family tradition. We have Christmas, it's a family tradition. So I think that is a good word for it. But the larger point is that I'm trying to create a world, and I think a lot of people are trying to create a world in which people can live the lives the way they want to, a meaningful life in the way that matters to them. And them leading that life doesn't really impact you at the end of the day. It's not hurting you, right? So help them out. Even if by helping them out, it's just staying out of their way.
Yeah. Well, Chris, we have taken, you've been very generous with your time. We've taken an enormous amount of it. But I want to throw one last one at you that I think in this current moment of digital stuff and creators and all that for our space is very kind of, I want to use the word prescient, but I think that's actually the incorrect use of that word, so I'll use it anyway. When you look at people like Andrew Yang, when you look at people like Vivek Ramaswamy, you have people who ran for office and were unable to get the office they were running for, but still managed to maintain a lot of control over the conversation. Like, we still talk about universal basic income, and I really do think that's because of Andrew Yang. And even like Doge's cuts in the first place, as much as I think we all disagree with them in this chat, like came from Vivek Ramaswamy's specific kind of prescriptions. I'm curious if, God forbid, you don't end up getting the nomination, what would you hope is the lasting effect of your campaign? What would you hope you are able to carry forward, even without any kind of like elected political office?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, I really want to get across, particularly to the Democratic Party, but everybody, is that we can win elections and we can do powerful things if we are acting in a way that is helping people and not getting, I know this sounds, again, it sounds silly, but like, just imagine a world where like you could actually have some faith in your political leaders that they're actually going to go to bat for you, and that you can, trust them, not 100% always, but that you could trust them to be somewhat honest and authentic about what they think and where they're coming from. And they're not just trying to switch their mind and switch their policies because they're trying to get to the next rung on the political ladder, right? I think that sort of authenticity and trust is what people are really, really craving right now. And I think it's funny, again, because we see that time and time and time again, that the video games that are really trying to say something and being authentic are the ones that people really gravitate towards. The movies that are doing something unique and are telling a story, a personal story, are the ones that people keep coming to again and again. And the politicians that are out there advocating for real solutions for normal folks' problems are the ones that are right now getting a lot of support and impact. And if the Democratic Party would just get out of its own damn way, I think that we would actually clean sweep a lot of these elections and actually implement really good policy. But we're never going to be able to do any of that, again, if we can't get out of our own way, if we keep doing the same thing. Like, why do we keep the answer in Ohio was Sherrod Brown? Okay, that was the only possible option even before I ran. Like, if it's not me, you're telling me in a state of 12 million people that Sherrod Brown is the only option? Like, it just feels like you didn't even try, right? You just
all
went to the guy that you
and
knew.
You chose vanilla.
Yeah, it just you went to the guy that you knew, that's your friend, instead of like helping out a pipeline of new younger leaders that could, even if they don't win this election, to your point, Andrew, they are in a process. And this is coming from a teacher and a mentor. I do a lot of business mentoring and game dev mentoring and stuff. It's all about building that process out over the long run. And I don't feel like we are doing that on the Democratic side. And that's allowing less savory individuals to come in and fill the gaps. So I would just like, in a perfect world, I would like to be able to be out there and show that good candidates with authentic lives and personalities that do care about you and do want the world to be a better place are not only viable, but they're the solution.
I definitely want to thank you for coming on. And if that is the end result of that, and we find a world where you go back into the games industry and do what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing, and the Democratic Party starts getting, people who are not just your regular milquetoast vanilla Democrats, people who are willing to actually come in and look at a broken system and try to change it, I would be a much more comfortable person, even though it would technically make my job as a political commentator much harder.
Yeah, wouldn't it just be nice if we all had just a little less stress on our chest? Right?
Absolutely.
Like, just to be able to breathe just a little bit easier. Like, I would consider that a win if I could do that.
That's definitely, thank you very much for coming on, Chris. I really do
thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it. That means a ton to me. And I wish you the best of luck on the rest of your campaign.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate you all jumping into the election stream too. And like I said, we're building a little coalition, I think, of people that, we're not 100% like-minded, but we all want to make America a better place. And so I'll just sort of selfishly ask if you could go to my website, volpeforamerica.com. I'm desperately in need of both donations as well as connections to different, networks, news agencies, things, but definitely need some donations. Definitely could use some more, social media followers and stuff just to help spread the message. So my selfish ask would be visit the website and support in any way you can.
All righty. Well, there's a link. There's a link for that available in the chat. And when this goes up on YouTube, then I will make sure that my editor has a link for that available for anybody to do as well, so that there should be plenty of avenues for that. Hopefully, again, that is the hope.
I greatly appreciate it. I love the conversation. It's nice when I get to talk about like a little bit of nerdier stuff. I do a lot of politics podcasts, and tends to be very dry sometimes. So I really appreciate you having me on and taking time out of your Sunday.
Gotcha.
Of course. Thank you for stopping by.
If you need anything in the future, feel free to reach out. If there's anything that, I'm not going to speak for Andrew, but if there's anything I can do, then just let me know.
Goes double for me, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Sereth, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.